Hey book friends, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the video where I chat through fantasy books with urban settings. I think this is such a fun setting for a fantasy, and I feel like it's not as common as some other classic settings, and so I wanted to highlight fantasy books with urban settings for a couple reasons. One, I think it's just fun. The second reason though is it is a bonus prompt, I believe, for Realmathon that is happening next month, which is March of 2025. And so I wanted to amass some ideas for myself for what books I could pick up next month, but I also wanted to give you some recommendations in case you were wanting to participate in the readathon. But regardless of if you're going to do that, let's talk through some fantasy books with urban settings. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel. Welcome back. Like I said, we're talking about fantasy books with urban settings. I am so stinking excited to share some of these books with you because as I was thinking about my list, this list includes some of my very favorite books. And now I'm realizing like I need to pick up more urban fantasy because these are great. And so my plan, I have 6 books that are recommendations for urban fantasy books. And then I have 6 books that are on my TBR that are potential fantasy books with an urban setting. So let's just hop in. Okay, the first one, and maybe most obvious, I'm not sure if it's most obvious to everybody, but is the Green Bone Saga. So this is the first book, Jade City by Fonda Lee. Now I've only read the first book and I feel like I want to reread it before I continue with the series. It's been like 2 years. I shouldn't have let it go so long because this is such an interesting world. The setting is this island, which is protected by the Green Bone Warriors who use the element of jade to enhance their magical abilities, basically to enhance their strength and speed and all of these things. And what's really interesting about this whole series is more the setting of this city. So they're in the capital city and there's this like warring faction. So it's almost like a gang rival. There's these 2 main families and we are following the Call family. And I think there's like 2 brothers and a sister, and it almost has that kind of gang mafia feel to it where they're trying to protect their territory. Like there's territories, right? And the other group has their territories and there's some infighting and there's a lot of politics involved in this family. And I've heard that this just rips your heart out by the end. I can see that just based on the writing of this first book that I experienced, that you really fall in love with the characters. You fall in love with the setting. You really are rooting for this family, even if maybe they're doing some things that are a little morally gray, if you will. But this has one of the most urban settings that I could think of when I was thinking of fantasy books. So this one, I highly recommend that whole series. The next one, I have read this entire series and I'm always wanting to recommend The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. I loved this whole series, you guys. I finished it up last year. It is immersive, is the best way I could describe it, but it also very much has politics and ruling families and charters and all of these things that are very necessary for an urban setting. And we are following our main character. Is it Ren? It's always Ren. Ren is a con artist who came back to this main city in order to swindle the elites, the ruling class, because also what's going on in these books is there is very much these cultural divides. Like there's a whole group of people who still live in the city, but they're considered second class to this ruling group of people who came in and kind of conquered. And Ren is an orphan, but she's more associated with that lower class, and she is trying to impersonate an upper class elite. And then there's also this other thread of this person, the Rook, because this is actually called the Rook and the Rose series. The Rook, who's kind of like this vigilante who swoops in and saves people. And it's like this masked character that nobody knows his identity. It's fantastic. I really, really enjoyed that aspect of it. And I enjoy our character of Ren as she is balancing and juggling all of this politics, as well as her disguise, as well as trying to keep people from realizing who she is. And the urban setting really plays a big role in what's going on in this world, which has a lot to do with kind of a dream magic sort of system. I won't go too much more into that because it's one, a little complicated. And I would say you definitely have to pay attention to these books, because once I paid more attention, I enjoyed them even more. Okay, another favorite, see, these are so many favorites, is this book. So this is the first book in the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. It's called The Final Empire. Now, this is one of the first fantasy books I read when I was dipping my toes into fantasy. And this is a very urban setting, but it's very different in the sense that it's more like medieval feeling, but it's centered in a city, and it's ruled by the Dark Lord. I think that's what it's called, Lord Ruler. The Lord Ruler, who basically gained power like 1,000 years ago when like the Chosen One went up against the big bad guy, and this is an example where the bad guy won and not the Chosen One. And now they're in this very oppressive society, and in this book, it's fantastic. It's like a heist story of this ragtag group of people who get collected in order to push back against the Lord Ruler. And our magic system in these books is really fun. It's like elemental magic in the sense that there are certain people who are able to utilize metals. If ingested, they can have this power, whether it's like pulling or pushing or whatever it is. But there are certain people called Mistborns who can control all of the elements. And our main character finds out early on that she is one of those people, and she gets recruited into this group. Oh, it's so good. It's making me want to reread this book. Okay, another one, I would say The City of Brass, or the David Bod trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty, is very city urban based because of the City of Brass. So this is about our main character of Nari. Now Nari is an orphan, of course she is, in like ancient Cairo, and she also explores like medicine and healing and things like that, until one day she accidentally summons a Jinn warrior, and then it all goes badly and they're on the run, and this warrior named Dara realizes that Nari has magic, which she shouldn't have, and she's important in some ways, and so he has to bring her to Daevabad, or the City of Magic. He doesn't want to for a variety of reasons that are so good, but yet he has to. And really this series has so much scope to it. Like our characters of Nari, as well as one of the princes of the main ruling family in Daevabad, I love their character arcs. I love what they go through. I love how they change and grow and develop in this 3-book series. It is so good, but it is very much set in Daevabad. And again, we have kind of the ruling party as well as a group of people who are looked down upon for their lack of magical blood or mixed magical blood. It's so good. It is so good. So I highly recommend the Daevabad trilogy. Okay, another one. This one's just fun. Okay, this is the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare. This is the second series in the Shadowhunter universe put together by Cassandra Clare. These are YA fantasy books about a group of people called the Shadowhunters who are tasked with fighting back the demons, basically. And in this series, we are more in historical London. The first series, I forget what it's called, The Mortal Instruments, was more modern day New York. So that would also count as very much urban setting. This is more like Victorian London-ish time frame. The setting really helps make this book come alive. Not only do I love the characters and the character interactions and the little romantic interests in these books, but the setting really helps it all out so much. So if you're looking for more of a YA recommendation of an urban fantasy, I really recommend that. As well as this, I don't think this is YA, but it is the first book in this series and the only one I've read, but I intend to read more because I read this recently and loved it. So this is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. There are new editions coming out, like she revised the whole thing. So I'm just slowly collecting the revised editions, but this is about our main character of, let me remind myself, Paige Mahoney, that's right, who is in this world that does not like magic in any way, shape, or form. Like it's like hunted down and people are killed for utilizing magic. And so she joins like the criminal underworld, like a gang really of magic users in the city. She rises up in their ranks until a night when she's arrested. And that happens on fairly early on. And it goes to places I didn't realize. So I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to spoil it for you. But this is very urban setting. Like there's some fight scenes that are happening on like city blocks and things like that. And it's just so good. I really, really enjoy this, and I can't wait to get back into it. This is making me want to pick up the second one in this series as well, but this is very urban in its nature. Okay, so those are some urban fantasy recommendation books of some of my favorites. I do have some other books that have been on my shelves that I've been wanting to pick up. The first being this series. So this is The Gilded Wolves by Roshni Chokshi. So this is the first book in a trilogy, and it is another kind of historical time frame. I think it's in Paris though. I'm not sure if it's a heist story, but they are looking for something, and our main character here has to band together a number of people to find it. This ancient artifact that the Order seeks. I'm not quite sure what all of that has to do with, but it's set in 1889. It sounds like a book that I would just really, really enjoy, and being set in Paris is just really fun. So very urban setting. Another one that is an oldie but goodie that I want to try is the Diviners series by Libba Bray. And this is 1926 New York. This gives me kind of, not Jack the Ripper vibes. It's this idea of this girl who has supernatural powers of some sort. She has been sent to live with her uncle who is like against the occult, it says, who is very much not wanting that sort of thing. So she's hiding her powers, but then she gets pulled into like these crimes that have to do with women going murdered, I think. And so there's a serial killer on the loose and she gets involved. I don't know, but that sounds really interesting. And I've heard good things about the whole series and I want to try it. Another one that is more a series I want to try that I've heard just really good things about. So I picked up a used library copy, and that's A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. So I've had this on my shelves for way too long without giving it a try. So this is also a witchy book. And this is about our main character of Diana, who is at the Oxford Library, and she uncovers like this ancient manuscript that she's able to kind of sense and feel, and it's been missing for a long time. And I feel like a lot of the different people, whether they be witches or vampires or whatnot, are interested in this book, and now that she has uncovered it, it's kind of surfaced and people are seeking her out. I'm not quite sure, but I feel like that whole witches, vampires thing sounds really interesting and set in like an academic setting, but hopefully also an urban setting, because I didn't really include academic books in here because that's a whole nother recommendations video, which I should make that because I do enjoy those types of videos too. Okay, another book that I have on my shelves that is very urban in nature is a standalone, and it's called These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. Now, I picked this up because of the pandemic type stuff in here, like, or there's some sort of contagion, a madness, it says. So this is 1926 Shanghai. So I do love my historical urban fantasies, clearly. And in this case, there's two games. This has some kind of like Romeo and Juliet flair to it, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. But then there's a contagion and it's targeting both sides like of the gangs, and people have to come together to solve it. Yes, I think it sounds really good. That wasn't a very good description, I realize, but it's very urban in nature. So I feel like this could be high on my list for March for picking up urban books. As well as the last one I want to mention, which I don't have a copy of yet, but I just mentioned it in a video where I was talking about the fact that I'm the last person to read some of these books, and that is Vengeful, or Vicious. Which one's first? Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I believe they start out fairly academic with these two students who are at university, and in their senior year, they have developed a way to like give somebody superpowers, but it backfires. And then later in life, they become like arch enemies, I think. So I believe it is very city centered or urban centered. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I do really want to read these books. And so I'm just going to put it on my list and hope that they are very much an urban type fantasy book. So I really enjoy urban settings in my fantasy. And like I was saying, I do truly believe they're more rare than some other settings for fantastical books. And so I highly recommend these. Let me know if you've read them. I know there's some like popular old favorites for a lot of people. And so let me know if that's the case. But if you don't necessarily have anything you want to say, but want to let me know you were here, let's leave a rose for these Violent Delights, because one, it's February, and two, it's on this book. So yeah, that is what I have. I hope you all are well, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you want to, and you guys, I will see you in the next book video. All right, take care.